Phoenix Raceway has a way of manufacturing confrontation. It is a 1-mile oval that compresses the competitive field into a tight, unforgiving ribbon of asphalt where there is nowhere to hide, nowhere to breathe, and nowhere to escape the consequences of a single miscalculation. Every restart at Phoenix is a calculated gamble, every lane choice a statement of intent, and every contact a potential turning point in the larger story of a season. On March 8, 2026, during the Straight Talk Wireless 500, Phoenix delivered exactly the kind of moment it specializes in, a crash born from the volatile intersection of tyre strategy, restart aggression, and the complicated history between two of the most competitive drivers in the NASCAR Cup Series garage, Joey Logano and Ross Chastain. Two names that carry weight in this sport for entirely different reasons, but whose careers have intersected at moments of friction, often enough that any incident involving both of them immediately demands a deeper examination. What happened on lap 217 at Phoenix was significant, not simply because it altered the finishing order of a single race, but because of what it revealed about the hidden pressures building beneath the surface of the 2026 Cup Series season, and about how quickly a race can shift from order to chaos when the competitive variables align in exactly the wrong way. To understand the full context of the lap 217 incident, you need to go back to the strategic picture that had developed in the laps leading up to that restart. Phoenix races are frequently defined not by raw speed alone, but by the strategic layering of tyre choices that creates a mixed field on restarts, a field where different cars carry fundamentally different levels of grip and acceleration potential depending on what their crew chiefs decided during the most recent pit cycle. On this particular restart, the strategic landscape was almost perfectly designed to produce tension. The front row was running used tyres, the middle rows carried 2 new tyres, and Joey Logano, restarting 7th, had 4 brand new tyres under his car. 4 fresh tyres at Phoenix is a significant advantage in terms of acceleration off the restart, the kind of advantage that can propel a driver from 7th to the front within a handful of corners, if everything breaks right. Logano had already demonstrated his car's pace earlier in the race by leading 73 laps, confirming that the number 22 Ford was among the fastest machines on the track that afternoon. With 4 tyres and a proven fast car, Logano's restart was going to be aggressive. Everyone in the garage knew it. The only question was whether the drivers around him had enough room to manage what was coming. When the green flag dropped on lap 217, the answer became clear almost immediately, and it was not the answer Ross Chastain was hoping for. Logano accelerated into turn 1 with the full benefit of those 4 fresh tyres generating grip that the cars ahead of him simply did not have at that moment. The momentum differential was significant, and when Logano made contact with the rear bumper of Chastain's car, the consequences cascaded with the speed and violence that Phoenix restarts are capable of producing. Chastain spun across the track. The chain reaction that followed collected multiple cars, with Anthony Alfredo and Austin Cindric both getting swept up in the wreck. Cindric's car left the ground briefly during the impact, one of those moments that reminds everyone watching exactly how much energy is involved when stock cars collide at racing speed. Bubba Wallace, through a combination of awareness and fortune, managed to thread his way through the worst of the debris and survive relatively unscathed. Chastain's car sustained heavy damage. He continued because Ross Chastain always continues if the car can move forward, but the day was effectively over. He finished 28th, 26 laps behind the leaders, a result that delivered a significant blow to his championship, standing at exactly the point in the season when consistency and points accumulation matter most. For a driver trying to build toward a playoff position with genuine championship intent, a 28th place finish after a lap 217 crash is not simply a bad day. It is a setback that compounds through the standings in ways that can take multiple races to recover from. What followed the incident in terms of the human response from the drivers involved was actually one of the more mature and measured exchanges that this particular sport produces in the aftermath of on-track contact. Chastain, when he addressed what happened, described it as a bad restart on his part. He acknowledged that Logano had simply gained momentum with the fresh tyres and hit the back of his car, framing the incident as a product of racing circumstance rather than intentional aggression. That is a generous interpretation from a driver who just had his afternoon destroyed, and it says something about where Chastain is in his career and in his relationship with the garage around him, Logano offered an apology and described the conversation he had with Chastain as productive, emphasising that there were no hard feelings between them. Whether that diplomatic framing fully reflects the private emotions of both parties is something only they know, but the public posture from both drivers was notably calm compared to the kind of responses that NASCAR incidents of this magnitude can produce. No accusations of cheating were made. No demands for NASCAR investigation were issued. No heated radio transmissions circulated across social media demanding retribution. By the standards of NASCAR controversy, this was a remarkably contained aftermath. NASCAR officials reviewed the incident and reached a conclusion that aligned with how both drivers characterized it. No penalties were announced. No investigation was opened. The sanctioning body treated it as aggressive but ultimately typical contact during a restart at a short oval track, the kind of contact that Phoenix specifically tends to generate given its configuration and the tyre strategy variables that play out during its races. That official stance was consistent with how NASCAR generally approaches restart incidents that result from momentum differentials rather than from deliberate and targeted aggression. The analytical community had more to say, and their observations cut to the heart of what made this incident so interesting beyond the crash itself. The consensus among NASCAR commentators and insiders was that Logano's 4 fresh tyres were the primary mechanical explanation for what happened. The acceleration advantage those tyres provided in Turn 1 was simply greater than the gap between the cars could safely absorb given Chastain's position and tyre situation. One of the more pointed observations from inside the sport's analytical circles touched on the question of perception and reputation. The suggestion made by more than one observer was that if the roles had been reversed, if it had been Chastain accelerating into the back of Logano with 4 fresh tyres and sending him spinning across Phoenix, the reaction from the garage and from fans might have been considerably more intense. Chastain carries a specific reputation in NASCAR, earned through seasons of aggressive and boundary-pushing racing that has generated genuine animosity from competitors. The idea that identical actions carry different weight depending on who commits them is an uncomfortable truth about how reputation shapes perception in any competitive environment, and NASCAR is not immune to that dynamic. The history between Logano and Chastain provides additional texture to the lap 217 moment. These two drivers have found themselves in each other's orbit at contentious moments before. The 2023 race at Kansas produced on-track tension between them, and the 2024 playoff battles added further layers to a relationship that has never been characterized by warmth or ease. When two drivers with that kind of history end up tangled together at Phoenix on a critical restart, the incident arrives with context that a simple mechanical explanation cannot fully capture. Both men are fierce competitors who race at the limit consistently, and the space between the limit and a crash is measured in fractions of a second and inches of asphalt. The impact on the championship standings reinforced just how consequential a single bad race can be in the points-based structure of the modern NASCAR season. Chastain's 28th place finish created a deficit that immediately showed up in the standings relative to drivers who had cleaner days. Logano, despite having led 73 laps and demonstrated genuine race-winning pace, added a second crash to his afternoon around lap 254, when a side-by-side battle with AJ Allmendinger ended with Logano spinning and collecting Daniel Suarez and Josh Berry in the process. 2 crashes in a single race for the pole sitter, 2 crashes that converted what could have been a dominant victory into a points disaster. The gap between a great day and a terrible one at Phoenix is that narrow. Fan reaction across social media was, by the standards of NASCAR controversy, relatively subdued. There was debate, because there is always debate, about whether the Logano contact constituted hard but fair restart racing, or unnecessary aggression, given the tyre differential he knew he was carrying into Turn 1. Some fans argued that a driver with 4 fresh tyres has a responsibility to manage his acceleration in a way that accounts for the vulnerability of the cars directly ahead. Others pushed back with equal conviction, arguing that restraint on a restart is not something any driver should be expected to practice when a race win is on the line. Both positions have merit, and the absence of a clean resolution to that debate reflects the genuine ambiguity of what happened. What Phoenix gave the 2026 Cup Series on March 8th was a reminder that the season's competitive narrative is never as settled as the standings suggest. A single restart, a single tyre differential, a single moment of contact in turn 1 can reorganise everything in an instant. Logano and Chastain both left Phoenix with damage to their standings, and with a shared incident that will live in the background of every future interaction between them on track. In NASCAR, nothing that happens in February or March is ever truly forgotten by October. The seeds of playoff drama are planted early, and Phoenix just planted several.